One of my favorite non-football websites is yourlogicalfallacyis.com, Brian.
I've actually never heard of that, but please tell everyone why you're looking this website up or why you're bringing it up. Please.
I'll spare the details. I mean, those that know me, and I know you're similar, logical fallacies and argumentative fallacies, whether in person, social media, wherever, make me want to hit my head against a brick wall. And sometimes, in a way, it feels like, you know, you can point out the fallacy. You can say, here's why your reasoning is flawed. And if you're talking to someone who, once again, is committing that fallacy, they don't care. But this website does a very neat job. Anytime you engage with a troll, you can actually send them a direct link to which argumentative fallacy they've used. So be sure to check it out. We might even tweet about it through our Occupy account. But
we need to get them to sponsor the podcast.
I'm going to reach out, man. These guys are legit. They have critical thinking cards, posters, a few things that I know we could use across schools in America.
Yeah, yeah, and on Facebook too, right?
Right. I mean, they got to teach these things early. Logical fallacies, human bias. It's all things that we are crusading against.
We've said it before. It should be a class in high school, human bias and how to overcome it. But maybe we'll get there someday.
Oh, they don't teach you that. They don't teach you DFS, and we're here to try and teach you some DFS for this upcoming week. It's the Occupy Fantasy Podcast. Co-host Waleed. I'm here with Brian, and we have a few things to cover, and want to jump right into the Thursday night game. Jets at Browns. We just put down the plug for the showdown slate, but also some props that we had covered. Brian, where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think let's start because one, most of our members know us and our followers know us as a DFS site, but as we've talked about a few times here, as the sports betting becomes legalized across the country, there's going to be opportunities to make even more money with some sports speculation, and player props is, of course, one of the best ways to do this. We've had great success over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years doing player props. And so we decided to bring that to our audience and to our members with our NFL betting plug that we're publishing every Saturday. And for week 2, we decided to put our player props in there, and they went 11-4, and that may seem great. Honestly, that's the norm. Player props are some of the easiest bets you can make. It's the reason they're so low. It's the reason I had nearly 100 accounts trying to bet player props in the past because you will get cut off quickly if you beat them. Yeah. But I'm thinking that as sports betting becomes bigger, these props will be more tolerated as more casual money comes in and bets them. So let's hope that's the case. But as you do your research for DFS, for season-long fantasy football, you can apply that to player props and make even more money. And so we did that for week 2. We're going to continue doing that moving forward. And I think there's a couple for this Thursday night game that we could talk about.
Yeah, no, and I know that's how you really, before you were even into sports betting on games, player props are just an inefficiency to kind of take advantage of because it's something we've covered in the betting podcast. They account for such few percentage of the actual bets being placed on sports that the lines just aren't as sharp, right? Like we've seen some, like last week, I can't remember which site had it, but some site had like Tyler Lockett's over and under, and they adjusted it by like 20 yards, but it was like 30 yards at first.
Yeah, it was 5 dimes when the props came out Monday afternoon or whatever time it came out. Yeah, over and under for Lockett was 33.5 yards. That went up quickly to 50.5 yards once people were on it and embedded pretty quickly. But it just goes to show they're taking millions of dollars on a side or total. Like, why did they need to put the time and effort to create realistic and sharp prop lines when the max bet is a few $100? So that for us non whales, people betting tons of money, more than $500 or a couple $100 is plenty enough to make a ton of money playing props for us. So that we can take advantage.
And the industry will continue to grow in this regard. I think we're here a little early, to be honest, but it's our preference. Even if you're not taking, if you don't have any betting accounts or you're not, currently in that process, just by even getting your mind to think about them, in a year or two, you'll be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and as we saw, real quick, FanDuel, they're offering their sportsbook now in New Jersey. You can bet online, and just looking at some of the stuff that they're offering, which player will score the most FanDuel points. So they're going to be down this line of player props, and it'll be here soon enough. So as you get the process thinking about it, you'll be ready when the time does come.
So which player props are you mashing on for the Thursday night game?
Yeah, two stood out in particular, and it involves the running backs. We wrote in the Thursday Daily Plug today, it's Wednesday, about this is one of the few scenarios, right, where we can get a favorable projected game script for Carlos Hyde. And he's handled all but, I think 67% of the touches for the Browns backfield, played on, close to 60% of the snaps. And we can get him over 57.5 rushing yards. 5 Dimes posted this, and we'll see which lines are out tomorrow when all the other books posted. But get him over 57.5 rushing yards, should be running the ball in the second half. And then the other one is Bilal Powell, over 15.5 receiving yards, which is maybe one of the worst lines I've ever seen.
That's crazy. I mean, that is, the league doesn't matter the opponent in that situation. Right. You're talking about like 1 or 2 catches there, and regardless of game script. So I like those. I feel good. I think I'll leave Carlos Hyde on my bench for season long tomorrow. But as far as the floor is concerned, yeah, I feel pretty good about him getting in that 50-60 yard range. So moving on to the main slate, and actually before we do, something we mentioned on Twitter earlier about entering the showdown max entry GPP, that's for like whatever 250K or with like 90,000 people in. Don't do that, please.
please don't do it. And we got some pushback from some followers saying, no, but you can, you should enter those. It's like, no, listen, don't. We posted in the plug and on Twitter reasons why not to. In the Monday DraftKings showdown slate, the main GPP, which is $10, like you said, 90,000 people, 150 max entries, 108 people tied for first place. So they split. They each got like $4,000. But if you had the second best lineup, you took home $100, 10 times your money. And if you've read our ultimate guide, if you ever listened to us ever, you can make 10 times your money much easier in 100-player leagues or quintuple ups or the 10x boosters on DraftKings. It's just, it's a complete waste of money to put your money in these GPPs.
Right. And it's like, okay, when you have like full slates and with a couple games, it's still a bad idea to play these, unless you can max enter. But now you throw in a single game showdown slate with 5 positions. There's really no way to differentiate. You know what I mean?
like they have the MVP spot and they try, but like hundreds of people are gonna tie for first place. So that $200,000 top prize looks alluring when you enter the contest, but in reality, that's going to be split between 50, 100 people. So
completely. And if you finish second, it gets way uglier, and it's hard enough to finish, have the second most optimal lineup, because once again, you're going to have a situation where unless you start like the backup quarterback and the starter gets injured in an MVP spot, like you're not going to be able to have a unique lineup that finishes top of a 94,000 person contest.
No, and if you can't understand that or just choose not to understand that, that's where we stop being able to help you. Like, it's really all it comes down to. So
right. Back to the argumentative fallacies thing. That's what we'll get responses on. Like, but this time actually was never mind. Anyway, the main slate, we have the Saints at the Falcons, big NFC South showdown. These are two teams, when they meet historically, the scoreboard lights up. Do you feel that way about this week?
I think you have to feel that way, right? With the Saints, the defense not looking as great as it was last year, and then the Falcons, all the injuries on their defense. The crazy thing to think about here is we talked about on last week's podcast with Atlanta allowing the most running back receptions since Dan Quinn has been there, and now with Deion Jones, Keanu Neal out, just makes for just easy pickings for running backs out of the backfield. We saw McCaffrey have 10, 12 catches last week, and now they get Alvin Kamara. So I don't know how they plan to stop him. I don't know how he gets less than 10 catches in this game, because he's one of the 6 running backs, which is nuts, that are on pace to break the single season receptions record by a running back. So, Kamara, McCaffrey, Theo Riddick, Melvin Gordon, Saquon, those 6 guys are on pace.
Chris Thompson as well.
Chris Thompson, right. So And now we have Kamara, who's going to definitely stay on pace in this matchup.
Yeah, it's certainly as ideal of a matchup as it gets when it comes to a dynamic running back like Kamara. On the other side of the ball, we have Devonta Freeman, who will look like he was out week to week, right? And probably on ice for like 3-4 weeks now. Dan Quinn kind of refuting it and saying, we never said that. He's actually day to day. If I had to bet, I'd say he's probably not going to play. It's only Wednesday. We don't know. He could end up practicing tomorrow, long shot probably. But in the event that he is not on the field, how much are you liking Tevin Coleman? He's top 10 in the model. I think 7 right now, or 8.
That's still pretty good. The only thing I'm concerned about now, but obviously the model accounts for this, is the increase in price. Last week we got him; he was pretty cheap, but now he's up 1,100 on DraftKings, up to 6,400, up 1,400 on FanDuel. And it's not like he got the James Conner treatment, right, where he literally got almost every carry. Yeah. Ito Smith still took 9 or 10 touches away from this, so they still kept this 1-2 punch in the backfield. It's a good matchup. I'm just not sure if we can pay this extra price for him now that his salary is pretty much adjusted to where it should be.
No, I agree. I mean, it gets interesting when you think about a potential, and I don't know why you'd want to pivot from Kamara, but I have a hard time seeing both folks roster both Kamara and Tevin Coleman, given they're playing against each other, and it's kind of conventional wisdom to say, hey, well, you don't want a running back. Only one of them should have a favorable game script, but that's the only way it's interesting to me in a high risk contest, because I don't think many folks will have both of them in. But you're right, the price is adjusted, and there are other options available, but still, if you have them in season long leagues, you should be pretty pumped this week.
Oh yeah, if you have them in season long, you're definitely excited, and don't forget about Ito Smith. We mentioned he had 10 carries. If you have an extra spot on your bench, maybe pick him up in case this knee injury lingers for Devonta Freeman, because he looked the part, and he's got at least a part-time role. And if something does happen to Coleman, then you got yourself a top 10 running back. So
yeah. So 28 catches through 2 weeks from Michael Thomas. He continues to own. He is clearly, we knew this going into the season, but he's the number 1 receiving target on this team. And is he going to catch 140 balls this year for 1,500? Like, where is this going?
I don't know. I mean, maybe his pace slows a bit when Mark Ingram returns and they run the ball a little bit more. But as we said last week, they're using him out of the slot a lot more, and that continued in week 2. And now he gets another matchup where the slot corner is the weakness for the Falcons defense. So he's going to continue to catch balls. I mean, he already set the NFL record for catches through 2 games. It's hard to expect this pace to continue, but with Cam Meredith not fully healthy as we expected, Traquan Smith still not catching on, Ginn's just a deep threat, he's going to continue to get tons and tons of volume.
Yeah, and he's the real deal. Like, I mean, the way he is, it's actually like, it's shocking to me that he was a mid-second round pick, because obviously he played with Zeke at that Ohio State team. I think they won the national championship, if I'm not mistaken. So there was a lot of attention, and I mean, I remember Michael Thomas was just as valuable as Zeke. You know what I mean? And it's not like he was under the radar in college, but he's looking like one of the best receivers in the league. Julio Jones, we all know Julio Jones. Is this another potential double receiver reverse correlation stack?
Oh, this is what you're looking for, right? Pay up for these 2 guys. Do you think it's overkill to go both running backs, both receivers? And normally it's kind of crazy, but when you have running backs that can contribute in the passing game and 2 top-tier receivers where the targets are funneled towards them, I think it can make some sense. But this is really for super high-risk contest, obviously.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you have a ticket, for instance, to like the $1 million thing where you want to really differentiate, yeah, but then you'll really need to save money elsewhere. So, I mean, altogether, to kind of sum up this game from my perspective, Kamara, Julio, and Michael Thomas, I'll be getting them in a lot of lineups Tevin Coleman is interesting. I think for his price, there are better options. He's not like a complete bell cow where he's going to get 90% of the snaps. But yeah, I think there's a lot of fantasy action in this game. One more here, Ted Ginn. Could he be a sneaky one?
Yep. He wouldn't be as sneaky if Drew Brees didn't miss him last week. He had a 60-yard touchdown. Brees underthrew him. So, he's going to continue to get shots in this offense. So, yeah, high risk contest. He's a great play.
So, yeah, mix it up. I mean, you could do a Julio Jones, Ted Ginn, Alvin Kamara, right? Like there are many ways to kind of go about it. But, this is one of my favorite games early on. We'll see how that changes. So, Packers at the Redskins. Jimmy Graham was used often last week, unlike in week one. What did you see from him and the Packers offense?
Yeah, I kind of agree. It was kind of, after the week one, we're like, man, I mean, we thought he was going to have a big role and he only got 4 targets, but he bounced back last week, 8 targets. The one thing to keep in mind, he
had a touchdown call back actually too, a really nice one.
He did, yeah.
Back shoulder throw.
That's what we expected, that kind of chemistry between A-Rod and him. So, yeah, my old editor, Number Fire, JJ Zachariason, posts a great free article every week on Number Fire. The report goes into a deep dive in a lot of different metrics. And he noted that Jimmy Graham last year, one of the reasons he was so valuable, had 14 targets within the opponent's 5-yard line. This year, he still hasn't had a red zone target. I know the one was called back, like we just said, but I imagine he'll get more involved in the red zone moving forward, especially as they continue to struggle to run the ball.
Yeah, I think the matchup is honestly ideal here. The Redskins right now, they play good defense, right? And the numbers say they have, but they haven't seen an offense like this. They haven't seen weapons like this. And in the red zone, this is one kind of area where the Redskins defense has struggled a little, not too much, but I think Jimmy Graham's going to give him problems. Aaron Jones returns. Mike McCarthy made it very clear he's still the RB3. He's probably on someone's roster, maybe not in your season leagues. I mean, are you interested at all?
I mean, if you have a deep bench, maybe he's definitely the most explosive running back they have. But a friend of mine actually messaged me today and was asking about Aaron Jones for a season-long team. And we both kind of, we're talking about Jamal Williams hasn't impressed, at least to us fantasy players. And he's solid, if not unspectacular. But the coaches trust him. He's the #1 graded pass protecting running back by Pro Football Focus last year. That means a lot. Big. It means a lot. So he's going to stay on the field, and McCarthy kind of echoed those sentiments today, saying
with the hurt A-Rod, yeah.
Yeah, he said that, Ty Montgomery, Jamal Williams are our top tier, and then Aaron Jones is behind them. So until we see a reason for that to change, I don't know, but he is a high upside stash. We have a deeper bench.
Yeah, and keep in mind for Jamal Williams, I mean, he's getting the bulk of the carries. The first 2 matchups were not easy by any means. So schedule will get easier for him. And if someone, in your league's undervaluing him, given his production, might be someone worth targeting. Chris Thompson, man, his usage was unreal in the passing game last week. I think he had like 14 targets. Most of them were just, check downs from Alex Smith in the second half as the Colts just drop back and really a soft zone, daring him to throw deep. Do you see more of the same? Because for me right now, I look at Chris Thompson, and I mean, let's not get it confused. Like the Redskins were down, but the game was still close and well within reach. The Redskins did not hesitate to throw Chris Thompson out in red zone situations and hurry up. But I mean, do you feel like his usage right now gives you maybe comfort in making him a week-to-week start in fantasy, like a must-start RB, and B, a running back with upside this week?
I think you almost have to. I mean, you and I have talked about Alex Smith before. All the next-gen stats back it up. Like literally every single one that is used to describe a player's playing style falls in line with what Alex Smith is doing. He's, of course, bottom 5 in aggressive percentage. That throws into tight windows. He's bottom 5 in air yards to sticks, which is how short or long you're throwing to the first down marker. He's bottom 5 there. And he's, out of all the starters in the league, only Sam Bradford has less air yards thrown than him this year. So he's throwing short. He doesn't have the deep ball, the deep threat like Tyreek Hill. There's no Deshaun Jackson in Washington. So this is what Alex Smith is. He's going to continue to do it. And without a deep threat on the roster, there's no reason for him to push it downfield. Chris Thompson is going to be the main beneficiary here. And he's going to be in this group of 6 guys that could threaten the running back receiving record.
Yeah, and then keep in mind, teams know what Jay Gruden's off. He's been there for a few years. They know the Redskins have, historically struggled in the red zone. So, I mean, I saw the Colts did a fabulous job of this. They pretty much told the Redskins, "We dare you to sustain a 80-yard touchdown drive," right? And they turned those into field goals, and didn't convert in 2 situations. But the point is, defenses will be cool with Chris Thompson getting the ball underneath, and yeah, he's going to beat guys when he might be lined up on the outside. But I think teams are going to, hey, if he can gain 7-8 yards on a check down and it's 2nd and 12, or they'll take it and see if the Skins can once again score when they get down there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Jay Gruden said they asked him in post game, I think. Said, did you make any adjustments once you saw how the Colts defense was playing you? And he said, no, we saw some stuff. We think that our game plan was going to continue to work. And so we stuck with it. And so hopefully that's the case moving forward for Chris Thompson owners, because it's going to be 100+ reception for him. Is that the case if they're not going to adjust to the defense?
I like it. As a Chris Thompson owner, not as a Skins fan. So the return of Wentz, the Colts will travel to Philly, look to kind of continue their NFC East streak. But a few injury questions. Number one, both Jay Ajayi and Darren Sproles look pretty uncertain, to say the least, for Sunday. Does that mean it's Corey Clement time? And then Alshon Jeffrey, he's kind of like, I don't know if he's going to play. He might. He's someone to keep an eye on. But like on Wednesday, 7:50 p.m., how are you looking at this Eagles offense for fantasy purposes?
I think we have to assume that Ajayi is out and Sproles is out. Really early in the week, it kind of came out. Ajayi is probably not going to play this week, and then they kind of backtracked and said he might play. He's unlikely, but we'll see. He didn't practice today on Wednesday. I don't think Sproles is playing. It seems like a multi-week hamstring injury. So both those guys are out. Corey Clement is a top play, a top value, 4,300 DraftKings, 5,800 FanDuel. Going to get work in the passing game. They're still going to split work. They called up Josh Adams from the practice squad. Still have Wendell Smallwood. They're a committee type approach there, so wouldn't expect 20+ touches by any means. But his dual threat role, and he'll get red zone work, makes him one of the top values. From the passing game perspective, Wentz is back. I don't think they'll use him as much in using his legs to start. I don't think Jeffrey will play just yet. Mike Wallace on injured reserve. They just signed Jordan Matthews. It's a mess in their passing game. They've sustained a ton of injuries so far.
Yeah, they've been very unlucky early on in the season. Not too high on Wentz this week. But yeah, in season-long leagues, if you had him, you're probably excited and probably going to start him. But, I like Nelson Aguilar. I think he's going to be the biggest benefit. Same with Ertz. I think both of these guys will benefit. Wentz is an aggressive quarterback. He's much better than Nick Foles. And, the way, if I don't think the Colts are going to have the same game plan for the Redskins as they do against the Eagles. But I just see both of these guys here right now, Aguilar and Ertz, in prime positions to kind of blow up. And we'll see. But I could see both of them getting the end zone.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara situation. I mean, target's going to be funneled to those two guys. I mean, Jordan Matthews is going to be rushed back in with 10 targets, and they're not thrilled by any of the other receivers there. So, yeah, I mean, those two guys are in great shape. Anyone
on the Colts side? T.Y. Hilton?
I don't know. We know T.Y.'s better at home than on the road. Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron still kind of split, even though Jack Doyle's getting a ton of reps there. The running backs are splitting. I don't know, kind of tough to play anyone from the Colts side here, I think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, T.Y. is the only one I'd consider. I'd obviously stay away from Luck. T.Y. does have that big playability, and we saw that. The Eagles got beat for some big plays last week. Bills at the Vikings last week. I got absolutely killed in my season-long league by both Melvin Gordon and the Chargers defense. That was like a perfect RB defense stack against. Yeah, right. This week we have Buffalo actually traveling to Minnesota. Kirk and Diggs blew up last week. I mean, when I think of this game, my first kind of gut reaction is this is going to be a blowout. It's going to be 30. It's going to be over by halftime, right? Two questions. Number one, does that kind of limit Kirk's and Stefan's upside and even Thielen? And number two, do you feel like this is a prime RB/D feature matchup with Dalvin Cook and the Vikings defense if Cook is indeed healthy?
Yeah, that'll be a big question. He didn't practice today, which is concerning because he kind of tweaked his hamstring in that game against the Packers in week 2. And after the game, he said it was just cramps. I'm fine. And we assumed that was the case. He'd be practicing by Wednesday. He's not. So maybe it is a little bit of a hamstring pull. They may not want to risk him here. And if that's the case, Latavius Murray is a great value.
Big boost.
Big boost.
He'll be 90% owned if that happened.
Oh yeah, I mean we've talked about it before how he gets all the goal line work. Murray, 5,800 DraftKings. So DraftKings did a pretty good job pricing him up just in case with the matchup. But FanDuel is 5,200, and you want to get a lot of him there if that's the case. I don't know.
What about in an event where Cook does play? Could Murray be a sneaky start? Let's say this game kind of gets out of hand early. He gets a goal line rush, a touchdown early, and then he kind of, wears them out in the second half.
Yeah, we saw Austin Eckler do it last week. We saw literally every Raven running back do it in week 1. Mm-hmm. Certainly a possibility where he rushes for 100 yards and a touchdown in not even in a featured role. So I think he's in play regardless.
Yeah, Austin Eckler had 11 carries for 77 yards and also 3 receptions. So it could be a similar game script. I'm fairly confident, Buffalo's the worst team in the league, and traveling to Minnesota, look, if there's one survivor pick that you want to kind of bet on this week, I'd say it's Minnesota against Buffalo.
They're 17-point favorites, so just don't overthink it in your survivor pools.
Thielen's ranked very high in the model, higher than Diggs. Do you think that there might be a little, let's say, recency? I personally think Diggs is, as far as Kirk Cousins' priority, the number 1 receiver. But do you think the recency bias of Diggs' recent performance can kind of tilt the scale unevenly?
Oh yeah, no, it certainly can. I mean, we know touchdowns are relatively unpredictable. We know that people chase them the week after a player has a big game, and I'm looking now just in our model at the opportunity that both of these guys have seen between Thielen and Diggs. And if you look at weighted opportunity, and this is a metric done by Josh Hermsmeyer. He runs airyards.com, does a lot of work with different play-by-play data. And if you look at target share and air yard share, Thielen has a much higher weighted opportunity than Diggs in the passing game. So Thielen's probably going to be the play in our model almost every week because of that, because our model takes the air yards and target share into account pretty heavily. So Thielen's going to be one of the safer options almost every week in this offense, as Kirk Cousins has shown pretty good chemistry with both of these guys. But I think particularly Thielen out of the slot.
Yeah, I mean, if you really look at last week, Thielen had 12 receptions compared to Diggs' 9 receptions. 131 yards for Thielen, 128 for Diggs, but Diggs did have a 75-yard touchdown, right? So you take that away. Thielen's longest catch of the day was 25 yards. So, I think the recency bias will tilt the scale, and that extra everyone saw the touchdown where Kirk just launched it, you know what I mean? And that was one of the coolest plays of the week. But little things like that can certainly tilt the scale, and some people may have forgot that, hey, Thielen so far through 2 games has had 100 yards in both and over 12 targets in both.
Yeah, he's a high floor, high upside receiver pretty much every single week now until we're proven otherwise.
Raiders at the Dolphins, where we saw a little more of this, Frank Gore's not going anywhere. It was a 60-40 split last week. Where do you see these guys as far as season-long value? Is Gore someone that you can consider at the flex?
I just don't think he's going to get enough work to be considered there. Maybe this week, but you're still drawing pretty thin if it's week 3 and you're starting Frank Gore in your lineup. So. Gore. Drake's going to get most of the work here. Gore's going to get his 8 to 12 touches. Oakland. I think Miami's going to keep the ball on the ground here. It'd be surprising to see Tannehill attempt more than 30 passes unless the game gets out of hand. So it's the right game for it. I just don't know if you need to do that.
Right. Yeah. No. If you need to do it, you're in a deeper league, I think.
Right.
But something to be said. First 2 weeks, he has gotten 9 carries, and this looks like it could be. Hey, they're 2-0. It looks like it could be another favorable game script. Kenny Stills is the number one guy, hands down here, and he's been someone that the models liked him. Kind of. I don't know, where's he ranked this week? Can you see?
Let's take a look. I'll take a look here, but yeah, he's the only one really playing a majority of the snaps there, where they're kind of rotating every other player throughout. So let's see, Stills is like top 15 this week, so he's in pretty good shape, and he's projected for less than 5% ownership. So,
and based off last week, he only had 3 targets, right, for 17 yards. So once again, recency bias can kind of kick in, and people. He's someone that I think will be overlooked. Really good matchup here. They're at home. He's going to be. He is the guy you want to own on this passing offense.
Yeah, his salary hasn't changed much, and even if Devontae Parker comes back, they've pretty much established that Stills is their number one. Just be careful with this game. It's only a 43-point game total. I don't see this flying over the total by any means, so it's not like you want to stack 2, 3, 4 Dolphins on your roster.
No. Yeah, not at all. If anything, this might be a spot to get one guy in a low ownership spot. Amari Cooper, for his fantasy owners, delivered last week with 10 for 116. I mean, what's your outlook on him, man? Because at first it's kind of like, okay, you know what? Here's a guy that we can at least rely on volume. Then after week 1, it's like, shit, can we even do that? But it does seem like the Raiders have really made an effort to kind of get him going. Could he repeat another 100-yard game this week?
I hope that sustains. Like, it's, we always see like the guy who complains gets a ton of targets the week after, and he didn't necessarily complain, but media and Gruden kind of pointed out that we need to get him the ball more, so they did. We'll see if that continues to stick. Are they going to move him inside more? If not, he's going to stay outside and go against Xavier Howard, who's every week we say he's an up-and-coming corner for Miami, and he's been great so far. So I don't know. I'd be more willing to bet that he doesn't post nearly as good of a game as last week. And I just don't trust this coaching staff.
Yeah, same. It's just one of those things. For that price, I like the upside and the floor I get elsewhere. Outside of that, the Raiders just seem like a fantasy zombie land, man.
Yeah. Do you really want to play any of these guys ever, any week? I don't know.
It's tough, man. And I'm thinking of a scenario where you'd even want to play Marshawn Lynch, and it would have to be like the Raiders at home against the Bills.
Right. And that's literally it. And even then, they're probably up so much at halftime, he's not even playing the second half. So.
So Broncos at Ravens. Mr. Lindsey looks to be the guy now.
He does. How crazy is that, right? And what a great story. From Colorado, high school there, college there, undrafted free agent. How does this guy not get a combine invite? He's electric. He looks like the first round or second round pick, not Royce Freeman.
I watched him last week because I didn't make a waiver bid on him. I felt like, hey, my running backs are good. I'm not going to be one of these people that bites the bait on someone. And we were joking. I told you last week, one of my friends, Zane, he spent $35 out of his $100 on his auction, right? Yeah. And I was like, I would never do that. And after watching him play, I'm like, it looks like he's going to get the last laugh here.
I know, yeah. He's out-touched him in the fourth quarter, so it's not like he's game script proof at this point. They were up in the first game, down in the second game, and he's been in the fourth quarter both times. Freeman only played 16 snaps. So Lindsey looks to be the real deal. And a note about this game, I know the total is only 44 right now. I think it's 44. But sharp money was in on this game early. So yesterday, a big sharp move came from 43 to 44. So they're expecting they being, these syndicates or these sharper bettors are expecting a more offensive game than we would normally expect from these two teams. Mm-hmm. So just something to keep in mind when you're creating your lineups this week.
I like it, right? Because I think sometimes we form these sort of opinions through just years of watching, and they get ingrained in our head, right? Like the Ravens defense, absolutely, just the Ravens D. And then you think of the Broncos defense, you're just like, okay, here's another top, defense. But look, the Ravens got lit up last week, right? And now in hindsight, when you look at how the Seahawks fared against the Broncos week 1, you're compared to what they did last week, things can happen in this game is all I'm saying, right? And I think people are going to avoid maybe Emmanuel Sanders or maybe even John Brown. But this game is where you can get some sneaky loan guys. I'm not going to bet, I'm going to stay away from them in cash games, but except maybe Emmanuel. But
right.
There's upside to be gotten here.
Yeah, I mean, our motto is kind of in line with these sharp bettors thinking. Joe Flacco, the number 2 quarterback on the main slate in our model. Case Keenum is right behind him, 1, 2, 3, number 6. So clearly, our model is picking up on whatever these sharp bettors are thinking. And this could be a great game stack for a high risk, super high risk contest where most people aren't thinking about it. I mean, like you said, this Ravens defense isn't what we thought it was. CJ Mosley's out injured in the middle linebacker, part of the defense. Top cornerback Jimmy Smith is suspended. You look at the Broncos side; they allowed, freaking Derek Carr to complete 90% of his passes last week.
Which is ridiculous. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, so just keep an eye on this game total. It might go up from here as people catch on and think it's sharp, and they try to get their own action in. So I like it. I think our model and sharp bettors are in agreement that this is a game, maybe not to that Seattle-Houston level of last year, but a game that you won't think about a shootout, but could turn out being that way.
I like that comparison because that was a game where, it's like you just don't think of these two teams in a shootout, and then boom, there you go. All right. The Bengals at the Panthers. Speaking of the Ravens last week, Tyler Boyd looked like he's the real number 2 guy. And he's been kind of that going into this offseason and training camp. And you can tell by the amount of snaps he's getting. He's getting work in the slot. Now with Mixon out and Gio kind of filling in for him, the Bengals O-line's a little better, gives Dalton more time. Do you look at Tyler Boyd as someone to take very serious?
I've been taking him seriously, and I kind of this makes me sound like one of those guys who I told you so, because I never publicized this, so that's my bad.
Hey, get it off your chest.
I know, but seriously, in all of my best ball drafts, I was taking Tyler Boyd in the last round just because once they released LaFell, they still weren't thrilled with John Ross. He was running with the second team most of the time in preseason. It's like, okay, this is Tyler Boyd's job as number 2, and if we expect their passing offense to improve as much as we think, Boyd's gonna benefit from this. So he proved it in week 2, and I don't think his price has changed. That he's 3,700 on DraftKings this week, 4,700 FanDuel. So they didn't adjust his price whatsoever. I imagine he'll be pretty popular after what he did on national TV last week.
Yeah, I think so too. And AJ Green, what he did on national television last week. How do you feel about him this week?
He scored more touchdowns in that first half than Julio Jones had all last year.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
If you have Julio or you like playing Julio, it's a disappointing fact to hear. I don't know what's the total for this game is 44. Cincinnati gets 10 days to prepare. I don't know how I feel about this game. I don't have a strong read either way.
It's one of these games where, man, with the 10-day, I always factor that in when I think, okay, you know what, this team has had that extra rest. We thought about it for the Falcons last week. So I think right now it's all systems go, man. And it would not. This Panthers defense isn't, exactly a team you can just run over. So they're gonna be in situations where they'll have to sling the ball. And Tyler Boyd at his price, it's hard not to consider rostering him.
I know. Yeah. I think Boyd, you almost have to play, especially in low risk contests. I'm sure we'll write him up on Friday, but you get 5-6 targets from him. You're in good shape. Gio, what do you think about him? DraftKings has done a great job. It's the same Latavius Murray type situation where they price the backup up a little bit. He's 5,900. He's not a slam dunk play by any means. He's definitely a good play. FanDuel a little bit better, 6,400. So I imagine he'll get most of the work here. Mixon's definitely out. I don't think they're going to trust the rookie Mark Walton behind him. Right. When he was the guy last year, he was the guy when Mixon was out, and I think we can expect more of that this week.
No, same. I couldn't agree more. I think if anything, now instead of having 2 guys that can catch the ball, you really have 1 guy that they'll trust on third down. So Gio could be sneaky, just given, even with that matchup, given how dynamic he is. The Bengals have looked good, man. You know, that offensive line, I'm not saying they're like really good all of a sudden, but it's amazing how much a difference, like just going from like really bad to like, okay, we can be decent.
Yeah.
Like that's such a big leap in the NFL, man.
Massive. I mean, yeah, Billy Price, the rookie who we talked about a couple times, he hurt his ankle. We'll see if he plays, but yeah, even just becoming competent is enough to have a serious passing game. So yeah, a big upgrade for them, and it's showing dividends early.
What about we know Christian McCaffrey? Pointless to kind of talk about him. He's a good match, a good play every week. These receivers are pretty yucky. Does anyone warrant your consideration?
I don't think this week, but we definitely should keep an eye on DJ Moore. Ron Rivera said that Moore had this great touchdown catch and run in week 2, and Rivera said we kind of need to get him more involved. So
right,
he only played 17 snaps last week, played the same amount of snaps in week 1. Keep an eye on his snap count this week. If that creeps up and he's playing 30, 40, 50% of the snaps, he could be a guy we play down the line.
Oh yeah, exactly, and definitely if you're in keeper leagues, I'm sure he's already owned, but keep an eye on those snap counts. It's pivotal to see because like I've seen people in fantasy leagues make pickup space. Like, don't be that person that looks at the box score, sees so and so caught 3 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown, and then you don't know that they were only on the field for 15% of the snaps, right? But with a guy like DJ Moore, where you actively, hey, this guy's not getting the work, but he's a high draft pick. The team wants to get him more involved, and maybe in a month or 2 he can become very playable.
Right. The only exception to this rule apparently is Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, actually, Deshaun Jackson can continue running 10 routes a game. And it's ridiculous. And yeah, we talked about it last week. We were like, hey, look, just be wary. Like Deshaun, as great as his week 1 performance was, he wasn't running on that many routes.
And then the very first play, I'm like, man, fuck, are you serious? Very first play, 75-yard touchdown.
But we should have known better. He is a Philly killer, man.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how good that defense is. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is. How many touchdowns has he scored against Philly?
I imagine that's the most he's scored against any team, right? Against Philly, it has to be.
It's ridiculous. If you exclude the NFC East opponents like Dallas and the Giants, because he obviously played them when he was in Philly, but
right.
It's a routine.
Real quickly, if you're interested in what Deshaun Jackson is doing, remember they have a new offensive coordinator down there in Tampa. Kean Fahey, who we had on the podcast in the preseason, he did a nice video breakdown of how they're using Deshaun Jackson in this offense. So check out his page. Really informative, kind of shows why he's getting open so deep now with Fitzpatrick.
Are you sure it wasn't that suit that he was wearing?
That could be. What a baller.
No, but definitely check it out because there's obviously a method to that madness. It's not like, he's obviously still Deshaun Jackson, a deep ball threat, but there's a reason what things are working this year versus what they were last year.
Yep.
Giants at Texans. Can you trust anyone on Houston outside of D-Hop? And can you trust anyone on the Giants outside of Odell?
No. Maybe Fuller now. I don't know. It's just been lights out with Watson under center. But even though Watson put up the fantasy totals last week, he just, once again, didn't look great. So our model likes him this week as a top-tier play as the matchup with New York. I don't know. I think they're all high risk at best here. Any guy in this game is high risk at best. Maybe Odell you could consider, but I don't know if you need to play him in low risk. But I don't know. I keep saying I don't know because this game could be a shootout. It could be low scoring. I don't really know what to expect.
It really is, especially with the way this Giants offense. It comes down to O-lines, man. Like Eli is not really. Look, it's one thing for him. Once a quarterback is always under pressure, it alters the way they even think. You know what I mean? We've seen how it's affected Russell Wilson. Eli Manning's slow as a slot. So for him, he knows he can't just escape the pocket. You can tell it's affecting the way he's playing. And poor Saquon Barkley, man, it's like he has to make everyone miss. It's just the way things are right now for this offense. You can't sit here and watch them and actually have any confidence.
And then they lost their starting center. I mean, you do feel bad for Barkley. Like, he's doing everything he can. If you watch him play, like, you can see this dude's really good. He broke a tackle on 12 of his 24 touches in
It's
week 2.
nuts.
I mean, he's literally doing whatever he can. But Giants were on national TV Sunday night. Everyone saw that, and Houston's getting a ton of love. The spread has moved from -3 to -6 in Houston's favor. People who have been on Houston haven't been very profitable so far, whether it's their season win total, betting them to win the Super Bowl. They were favorites. I mean, people were betting them heavily in the offseason. We'll see if this continues, but easy to see why the public perception is against the Giants in this spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Titans at the Jags. We saw the Jags blow up. If you stack the receivers, you probably came out on top. But now it looks like should Leonard Fournette be back in the lineup?
I think so. He returned to practice today in a limited fashion. It sounds like he was close last week, and he didn't want to risk it. So I imagine he'll be back this week against Tennessee.
Yeah, it sounded like if it was a playoff game, he would be ready to go. We'll get people chasing, these Jaguars stats from last week. I think, Keelan Cole, I think they have talent at the position, but Blake Bortles is still the quarterback, and as good as he looked last week, more often than not, he probably won't look like that. Although the Titans, I mean, everything is wrong with the Titans right now, right? So, is there anyone on what would be your favorite Jaguars plays, not including Leonard Fournette?
Well, I was going to say Fournette. Maybe Bortles. Let me see. Hold on. But probably not, because, I mean, you're not going to pay for what he did last week. Not trying to chase those points. He is number 4 in the model. But this is another low total game. The total's 39.5 in this game.
Lowest of the week?
Yes, definitely lowest of the week. The Jags are 6.5-point road favorites. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to see Jacksonville not covering this spread, especially if Blaine Gabbert starts, but they're coming off a monster win, and now they're traveling to a team that hasn't performed that great this year. It's definitely a letdown spot, and I think that's reflected in the spread.
Yeah, and I'm all over Jags D here. I think they're in a great spot. Other than that, I'm staying clear of these receivers because, it's they all rotate in. There isn't anyone that's clear head and shoulders above the other two. But hey, they're fun to watch. They looked fun last week.
They did. I mean, we're not going to know who's going to be the guy each week, but I mean, they all have talent. Keelan Cole, Westbrook, especially. Maybe not Moncrief, but those guys. Yeah, definitely. On the other side, Corey Davis, 20 targets through 2 weeks. He's a guy to keep on our radar here.
His target share has been like over 30%. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's nuts. So once Mariota's fine and under center, that first game back, we can probably get Corey Davis in a good spot. Until then, you can't really play him with Blaine Gabbert, though.
Couldn't agree more. If you can buy low on him in season leagues, I would try and see if you can lowball to get Corey Davis on your team. He's not someone I'd start this week or maybe anytime soon. But when Mariota returns, I mean, if you're looking at without Delaney Walker and some favorable game scripts with them playing catch up, he could end up with like 150 targets.
Oh yeah, I mean, with Walker out, like you said, he's in line for a monster workload. So,
and these aren't great, situational targets, but hey, they still add up. Niners at the Chiefs. Me and you were talking about the emergence of Sammy Watkins and how they got him involved. Pretty exciting stuff, man.
Yeah, finally, and his game could have been a lot bigger had Mahomes not missed him on that touchdown wide open. But you can't say enough about this offense. I mean, sure, Patrick Mahomes is doing a great job executing and getting to the right guys. But, I mean, they just have guys wide open, great concepts. We know Andy Reid's a genius on the play calling side of things. So we'll see if they can keep this up. This should be another shootout game, and Vegas certainly believes that. The total is 56.5, up from 55. The Kansas City has a 31.5-point team total. This is going to be the game that most people look to stack this week. Last week was Kansas City, Pittsburgh, rightfully so. Week 1 it was Tampa, New Orleans. This looks like the game you should get a lot of your players in.
Yeah, no, I like I like a lot of guys here, man. I mean, obviously Mahomes, Tyreek Hill are the obvious, but Sammy Watkins is a great pivot from Tyreek Hill in tournaments, right? Kareem Hunt, yeah, you'd think if the Chiefs at home are going to dominate, he's going to probably get some good work and get in the end zone. Brietta, he
Yep.
he looks fast, man. And I heard Tyreek Hill earlier say, because apparently Brietta is also nicknamed the Cheetah. He's like, you can't be a cheetah if you ran a 4.5, whatever. But then I heard, hey, Brietta ran like a 4.3 something, so
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So
little charged up badge maybe.
yeah, a little charged up badge for sure. Yeah, got some whiteboard material, right? I don't know. It's unfortunately it still looks like a split. I mean, even after that great run Breida had for a touchdown, Alf Moore still got 6, 7 carries in the fourth quarter. So
Yeah.
I think unfortunately it's going to be a timeshare.
And I'm betting on the game script here. I think that the Chiefs will create a scenario at home where the Niners can't be feeding Alf Morris in the fourth quarter, right? Like for me,
Yeah.
that's just how I'm kind of seeing it. Like the Chiefs will probably put up 35. This isn't the Lions' offense, so I like him. I like him this week. I like a lot of guys in this game, Kelsey included. Kittle could be a good option.
Yeah, I mean Kittle. After everyone was burned by him last week, people forget about him. His price is actually up this week, despite catching one or two passes. A guy not to forget about either is our boy Marquise Goodwin. If he does play, he's the type of player that could burn this defense. Kansas City's defense is still really, really bad. Don't get it wrong. Their defense just devoid of talent. Yeah, just completely.
They are playing like a kid on Madden, like he just puts it on rookie mode, but also doesn't know how to play defense.
Right, for real. Seriously though.
Chargers at the Rams, Battle of LA. I found it interesting. I mean, not the Chargers defense is obviously really good, but Todd Gurley was outside the top 5 on the model.
Yeah, let's take a look here. So Todd Gurley is number 6. I imagine it has to do with his price. Let's see. Let's see how much has his price increased or decreased since last week. Up 400 on FanDuel, same price on DraftKings. They're 7-point home favorites. The stat I heard today, which is really nuts, Todd Gurley leads the league in red zone carries with 16. The next closest is AP with 8.
Wow.
So he's actually doubled the next closest guy. We'll see if he can continue to be this efficient with his touches. Our model doesn't believe that's the case. I don't know, but it's hard to find a better spot of 7-point home favorite. So
yeah, no, he's the best player in fantasy, right? Like we're not arguing that. He's the most valuable, consistent entity. We're not saying stay away from him. Absolutely roster Todd Gurley and he'll make you look good. But given, at the end of the day, we're chasing points. We're not, chasing like long-term season glory here. On a week-to-week basis, prices do matter. And that extra $400 on FanDuel it could be a difference. If it's not, then it's not. But when you set your lineups, definitely something to consider if you can kind of downgrade Gurley for maybe like Alvin Kamara, right? That could
save $600 by doing that. I mean, it's hard not to do that.
Yeah, and it's also hard to roster both Gurley and Kamara, right? So just something to consider. Brandon Cooks is off to an amazing start. I mean, everyone is on the Rams, right? What do you like about kind of the Chargers? We know historically last year not the best matchup for a guy like Brandon Cooks. But we did, was it the Chargers whose DBs are struggle a little against, let's say, faster guys?
Yeah, they don't allow as much cushion as you would think. This was what put us on Tyreek Hill in week 1. They're way below league average in cushion allowed, which is Next Gen Stats measure this, which is basically how far the cornerback is away from the receiver at the time of the snap. They're way below league average. So when you have a guy like Cooks who has the speed to get by you, normally you want to give them space to kind of, to account for their speed. And that's a big reason why the Chargers can allow some big plays. So Cooks, Woods even, who has the most air yards on this team, despite Cooks' performance last week. The big thing is they've used 3 wide receivers on all but a couple snaps this year. So Cooper Kupp, Woods, and Brandon Cooks all are going to have value almost every single week.
Yeah, that 11 personnel is like a staple for McVay, and it's a fun place to own players in fantasy. I'll tell you that much.
Hell yeah.
So the Cowboys and Seahawks, who the hell can you trust here?
The Cowboys defense?
Sheesh.
I mean,
imagine that, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, Seattle's offensive line is so bad. They've given up, I think, 12 sacks in 2 games.
Mm.
Cowboys defense has actually looked good through 2
Yeah.
games. But I mean, you don't want any players really from this game at all.
I'm skeptical even about Cowboys defense just because the way Seattle was all like last year, their offensive line was really bad too, right? It's not like this is news. We've seen Russell Wilson put together games where you're like, how the hell is he going to come out of the season alive, right?
Yeah.
But then at the end of the season, you see Russell Wilson always up there when it comes to fantasy scoring, right? Now he doesn't have Doug Baldwin. He doesn't have Jimmy Graham. I get why the Dallas defense is very tempting here. But if there's someone that I'd like to flip the script with, it's Tyler Lockett, actually. Yeah, Dallas is for no other reason than they're at home. No one's going to be on them. Everyone's thinking this worst case scenario, and all it takes is one deep ball for Tyler Lockett.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, the game total is, was it 40? Sorry,
I'm not making a good argument.
No. I still like Lockett. He's going to run out of the slot, and he's going to be the most targeted guy probably for Seattle. The line, the betting markets are all on Dallas here. 1.5 point move in the total. I'm sorry, in the spread. Seahawks team totals down a point. I don't know. It's just tough to make a case for anyone, but I agree with you. If it was someone, it would be Tyler Lockett for sure.
Oh, we don't have to spend too much time on this game, because that might that's probably one of those tournament flyers there. But other than that, I'm staying clear.
Sure.
Bears at the Cardinals. The DJ issues continue with how they're using him in the passing game, but also, just like a few different reasons, right? Bears defense, they've looked like Khalil Mack is worth every penny, right? No surprise there. This looks like one team heading one direction and another team heading another direction. What do you see? What do you see unfolding?
Yeah, well, this defense of the Bears is definitely what's keeping me interested in having hope in this Bears future that I've talked about every single episode. So they look good. I think the offense will pick it up eventually as Matt Nagy gets used to being a head coach and a play caller at the same time. Mm-hmm. But this Bears defense is in such a good spot here in Arizona, and the DJ usage is just maddening. Where we tweeted it out, where he's being used basically just on inside runs only. That's all he's really doing. 20 of his 22 attempts have come on the inside, which is in between the tackles. Only 2 attempts on the outside, which, as we tweeted, you gain most of your yards on running plays on outside plays, nearly a yard per carry higher per league average. If they continue to just run him up the middle and have this conservative offense, don't split him out wide. They made some comments in the media this week that we need to figure it out, which somehow over the past 9 months they haven't figured it
out. They're like, we need to get more creative. Like, okay.
No shit, yeah. So, we'll see if it happens. Will it happen? I don't know. It can only go up from here, I guess. I don't know if it can get much worse for DJ.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's as bad as it can get. DJ is still DJ as far as his talent goes, but it just takes so much more than one person at running back to have a legitimate, top tier fantasy impact. We see even like with Zeke, with his O-line hurt, like he went from, easily a top 3 back to now, he's not seeing, he's not even getting 20 carries a game because the game script's not allowing for
it. Right. They've run the fewest plays in football. Like, it's not even close. They can't sustain any drive. They don't score ever. And when that doesn't happen, it's really hard to make a fantasy impact.
Any Jay Howe exposure for you this week?
Yeah, I think so. They want to get him more touches, they said. He hasn't scored yet. I think they've had 4 red zone plays, and for some reason they passed on 3 of the 4, and the other was the keeper by Trubisky. So Howard's going to keep being used in the passing game. Should get more rushing attempts this week. I like him a lot.
Same. I think he's in a prime spot. A nice little Jay Howe Bears stack could go a long way. A-Rob looked like he got the bag for a reason.
Hell yeah.
10 catches, I think.
Yeah, 10 catches, and Trubisky's just locking onto him. He's the first reading a bunch of plays, and so he's throwing him the ball. And we'll see. The biggest thing is he's being moved inside a lot, so which means he'll avoid Patrick Peterson for the most part this week. So he should continue his usage here.
We saw Burton get that little shovel pass on that well-designed goal line play.
Oh yeah,
but the production so far hasn't been there. He hasn't been stretching the field. Are you concerned at all, or do you think he's in a good buy low spot / good value tight end this week?
I don't know. It's going to depend on Trubisky. If he needs to make some serious progression in his reads. Like I said, he's mostly looking at his first read and then ducking and running. So I don't know. I think as he gets more comfortable, that would be the case. I would be trying to buy low on Burton, but I don't feel confident in it, to be honest.
Yeah, same. I use my backup tight end, and I'm certainly open to moving him, whereas 2 weeks ago I wanted to hold on to him. I think Trubisky will get it together, but based off what we've seen through 2 weeks, it is a little concerning.
It's definitely concerning. I mean, it's nice he got the goal line look, but for all that was talked up this offseason about how big of an addition he would be to this offense, hasn't really come to fruition. So, but just a reminder, and our model incorporates this. And Adam Harstead, who you and I both are football guys, like his work. He's done some research showing that ADP, so preseason ADP, average draft position, is still more predictive than season year to date stats up until week 4. So let's not overreact just yet. Let's take into account. But up until week 4, let's think that our ADP was correct. And then trust the process. And after that, once week 4 happens, Burton is still bottom, 17, 18, 19th ranked fantasy tight end. Then it'll be time to worry.
Exactly. And schedules, early season schedules, guys getting kind of familiar with new offenses, because preseason training camp is one thing, but when you're in the groove of a regular season game, it's different. So keep that in mind. It's always important. Like, you see people overreact after 2 weeks. Like Jamal Williams was actually dropped in a league. And that's because he wasn't productive, but the matchups were tough. The volume's still there. The coaching staff clearly trusts him. So you get even someone like Sammy Watkins, right? After his week 1 performance, everyone was kind of off that train, right? It's like he might as well be on the waiver wire, right? But then after last week, it's like, oh, well, actually, he could be very relevant in this offense.
He'll be started in 100% of the leagues this week, right? Yeah. after last week compared to probably 0 this past week. So
I know I'm starting him.
Yeah, honestly, me too. So.
Well, here's the Sammy Watkins. Here's the you guys. Thanks for joining us here. NHL season right around the corner, so we'll be able to really get you guys right. Check us out. Make sure you read the beginner's guide. If you're new to it, real fun, real great way to profit in DFS, where the competition is a little less sharp.
I'm a little biased, but I think it's the most profitable DFS sport.
Lucky you. And we'll be back next week. Holler at us at Occupy Fantasy.
Yeah, and don't forget, subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Definitely subscribe, rate, and listen. And we'll be back next week. Take care.
Sweet deal.